cruise ship workers of Reddit, what was the biggest oh Schmidt moment on the boat that luckily passengers didn't find out about at all? While I don't work on a cruise ship, I do work as an port state inspector and mostly do cruise ships. During my inspection I'm often in the crew only areas and it's not uncommon to hear some interesting sounds coming from some of the crew staterooms. Also I have walked in on people banging in some random areas like the fire team prep rooms. Videos of people having sex in public places, balconies especially, are often disseminated among crew members. Most of the videos are unfortunately potato quality, but I've seen some pretty interesting ones. Was on a cruise recently and struck up a conversation with one of the performing artists from a show. He told me how cramped the sleeping quarters were for the crew and basically created to be shared spaces. So if he wanted to have sex with his wife, he would have to schedule it around the other two people who shared the space. One time I was on a cruise, and a few cabins down a man and woman who were cheating on their wife and husband, respectively, got super drunk and fell over the edge of their balcony from really high up. It was at night too. The whole cruise ship stopped once it was reported, and it took like an entire day to search for them. Apparently the man had his jeans or something, because he had inflated them somehow, and they were floating holding them. They reported that they were stung by multiple jellyfish and were super cold the whole time. That must have been the scariest, most terrible 18 hours of their lives. Water pipe burst in a storeroom and soaked all of the spare toilet paper. This was on day 2 of a 14-day voyage to Antarctica. The cabin stewards had to swap around rolls of paper between low-use and high-use guest cabins, and it came right down the wire. None of the guests found out or realized. Now toilet paper is hidden in every cabin instead of a centralized location. I used to be a crew member, and one time a guy working at the front desk jumped overboard after a crew party. He was found a few hours later by the Coast Guard, and everybody was asked to be discreet in order to keep the cruise running smooth, and everything was fine until the captain came on the PA and said we were delayed because a crew member jumped overboard. Then the madness begins. Rumors appear out of nowhere, and the rest of the cruise was pretty much guests asking what happened the whole time. A lot of shit happens on board. I could write a book, maybe even more than one. Somebody shot at the navigation bridge of the ship from the shore on my last ship. The bullet bounced off and hit my colleague on the hand. No real damage, but it scares the hell out of her. Ended up going home for a few weeks while we waited for the local police to come on and investigate and take statements. Guests were told we were delaying the departure to take on fresh water. I'm still shocked that never leaked out. I was playing a production show. Guitar was standing on stage with a wireless unit alone to play Purple Rain, and then all of a sudden the house lights came on and the curtains closed. Everyone in the audience looked at me, and I ran off the stage. Turns out a sewage pipe burst backstage and there was Schmidt everywhere. Show was cancelled, and the passengers didn't find out why. Well, all the passengers found out, but on a QM2 transatlantic crossing one of the kitchen staff got drunk one night and hurled himself overboard in the North Atlantic. The ship basically found out the next morning when the first mate kept calling on the ship-wide intercom for him to go to his post. That afternoon, the captain announced what happened and that the ship was turning around to, with the help of 3 nearby merchant ships, try to search for him. Of course it was foggy as hell, and you couldn't see 100 yards, but just about everyone was on the railings with binoculars trying to search for the poor guy. A wedding even stopped on board, the whole party out looking, once the announcement came that we were in the search area. After, shockingly, nothing was found, the concierge desk set up a multinational currency donation box to send to his family back in Chile. There were 4 days left in the trip at that point, and every day, that box was stuffed to capacity. I hope it helped them. Was a passenger who found out. I was on the Costa Serena in January 2012, just cruising around the Mediterranean. Woke up one morning and all of the crew and wait staff at breakfast were stone cold and depressed looking. They made us do an extra lifeboat drill that morning, to all of our confusion. Found out later that day that our sister ship, the Concordia, sank overnight but didn't have many other details. My now wife wasn't on the trip and didn't know the exact name of the ship I was on, and found out before us. She was terrified till the next morning when I could get onto the ship's internet connected computer. We also found out the crew was especially depressed because a lot of them had family on the other ship and very little information. Took a few days, but things got back to fairly normal. I just remember doing lifeboat drills and thinking they were a waste of time. Learned that lesson. I was touring a ship for a future event. The ship was about to leave for a 100+ day cruise. I saw a lot of old people getting on with oxygen tanks. I asked him what happens if they die on board. He said it was very common for old people blow their life savings to come spend their last days on this cruise. He also said they have a fully functional morgue. We were on a family cruise, and after a wonderful dinner we were trying to get back to our room. As we got to our floor and headed down the hallway, there was a new dead-end wall had appeared that separated us from our room. We were told we had to go the opposite way and go around another hole on the other side of the boat. As we walked we noticed many new walls. Once we got to the other side the floor was wet and one of the new walls was leaking water from behind it. It took us 20 minutes to navigate the newly built out labyrinth. We were so worried we were taking on water we could barely sleep that night. I was a passenger and was shooting the shit with one of the crew members late at night. He told me that on an earlier cruise someone had died in a hot tub the first night out of port and people didn't know for hours. He managed to stay propped up and his sunglasses helped hide it. Several passengers entered the hot tub during the time and assumed he was antisocial for whatever reason. The crew discovered him when they were closing the pool area for the night. They moved the body downstairs to the morgue. None of the passengers, except the guy's family, found out about it. Not a crewman, nor am I a boatswain, but I went on one of those overpass cruises to Bruges, and we caught one of the seamen with his pants literally around his ankles as he was balls deep in one of the waitresses. We skidded the heckaroo out of there and later found that it was actually a couple who were on the cruise as passengers and were all playing, and that we had actually barged into their cabin by accident while drunk. Heard this one from a friend who worked the cruise ships in the 80s. So it was one of those mainly senior citizen cruises, and our older gentleman passed away while lying on one of the outside sunds. Luckily, one of the officers was first to notice and quickly called over to South American staff members, whose English was less than perfect, and he tells them, "Get rid of that quick, before anybody sees it." The officer meanwhile tracks down the gentleman's partner, and after consoling her through her grief, she asks to see the body. He takes her to the refrigerator, where they keep people who pass away, and it's empty. He calls the ship's doctor, who knows nothing about any body. Now furious, the officer hunts down the two staff members who moved the body. He finally finds them, and goes ballistic. Where the hell is that body? They look at each other, and one of says, "You say get rid, we get rid." The officer is now confused. "What are you talking about?" In answer, the man makes a throwing over the railing motion. In hindsight, I wish I'd asked my friend what they told his wife. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share the video. I post new videos every other day, so don't forget to turn on channel notifications. Have a good day.